Dr. Gorka, what a day to have you on the show. How are you doing today? Thanks for being with us.
Whenever anybody asks me that in the last 155 days, I always say the same thing. Living the dream, my friend, living the dream.
So I got to the first thing I want to ask you as a bit of like a point of jealous favor, what is the mood there today? Because I feel like everybody's got to be like, yeah, we did it.
I can't really answer that question honestly because you know me. What is it? Jesse Waters on the Five once said, Sebastian Gorka, the scariest man on television. And that was way back when. So I have a certain image. People don't really associate me with happy, warm and fuzzy. But if you ask any of my colleagues, for the last 6 months, I have literally been walking around this building like the Cheshire Cat. I have a grin from ear to ear because I'm in the dream job of my life. Been waiting 26 years to run counterterrorism for the most important president of the modern age. And then what happened? I'm in the sit room Saturday with this small truncated version of the cabinet doing this amazing thing that nobody knows is happening. So as an immigrant, a legal immigrant to the United States, this is beyond belief. And then we have the president's announcement yesterday. So the best analogy, it's a kind of a weak one, but maybe you can help me out as former White House press secretary to President Trump, is President Trump, Sean, is like the magician, but it's all real. It's not sleight of hand. It's not tricks. This is the guy we were told is the warmonger, chaos, economy's going to collapse, World War III, Tucker Carlson is doing his idiocy, even Bannon is out of control, and they have to apologize to him. Why? Because in the space of just, 72 hours or less, he brokered a historic peace after 46 years of Islamofascism out of Tehran. So yeah, we are strutting around the West Wing a little bit today, my friend.
And you should be, because here's the thing. I said this on the morning meeting this morning, right? So everyone said when he first came in, you alluded to this first term, when Trump gets elected, the economy's going to crash. We have one of the greatest economies ever. When Trump came back in office and talked about tariffs, they're going to be horrible for the economy. Clearly not. The Axios has a piece, by the way, this morning saying no matter what happens, the stock market can't go down, right? And they were kind of joking that it's just amazing how resilient it is. Well, it's not just random that it's happening. It's happening because of Trump's policies. The border is strong again. It's closed. We went down to absolutely zero last month, right? And then on this issue in particular, which is your wheelhouse, all of these folks in MAGA said, well, if you drop a bomb, we're getting into a 5 million year war. And President Trump said, basically, trust me, I know what I'm doing, and it's not going to end up that way. And he was right. And the through line to me, Seb Gorka, is that he's not traditional. He's not going through and saying, hey, Bobby, who's been here for 3 decades and instituted all failed policies, tell me what to do again that Obama did and that Biden did. I know how to do it better. And it works. At some point, people have got to trust Trump.
Look, you know as well as anyone, right? What's the biggest way to get in trouble with the president, who, by the way, is far more magnanimous than I could ever be? You know me, Sean. You cross me and you are dead to me for the rest of your life.
That's true. That is true.
No, right? You don't exist. The idea that Tucker says what he says, and then 40 hours later the president says, "Oh yeah, okay, he apologized. No worry." I can't do that. You cross me, you're dead. But there is one way to get really in trouble with him like that. And that's when he says to you, and you can be a 4-star general, you can be a member of the cabinet, and he says, "So why are we doing this way?" And you say, because that's how we've been doing it, sir, for the last 25 years. That's how you get cashier. That's how you lose your stars. That's how you do not collect $200 when you pass go. This is why it's such a pleasure to work for this man. Think of just, you're a military man, okay? Think of this operation. If you read this in a Tom Clancy techno thriller, you'd say, Tom's kind of pushing the envelope of credulity. Everybody's looking at, Diego Garcia. Everybody's worried about what Iran's going to do with our base there. And he says, hey, Pete, can you fly those birds from Missouri? Just a straight shot. Do a little, maskirovka deflection move halfway so they think we're going to Diego. Then fly them under radio silence for 17 hours. Literally do the scene from Top Gun Maverick, which was stolen from Star Wars. Drop the bomb down the exhaust port of the nuclear base. And do it 12 times. And this is the most delicious of all, and now I can talk about it. I'm in the watch floor, the watch floor of the Situation Room on Saturday night, and I said to the guy, because you've got the massive screens up with the tracking and the radars and everything, and I say, hey guys, will you put the news on? Put on Fox, put on CNN on one of the screens. And I'm standing there, and the cabinet's behind me in the JFK room, and they've dropped the payload. In comes the chairman's military aide and says, we have, gives us the readout of what's been dropped. And I look at the TV screens and they're doing like housewife recipes and, what Jay-Z did yesterday. I'm going, nobody knows. Nobody knows anything. B-2s have ingressed into Iran, have, egressed out of Iran, and nobody knows, Sean, until the president posts that iconic truth. Thank you for your attention. And then everybody leaves the sit room. I'm standing on West Exec, that little road outside the West Wing, with the chief of staff, Susie Wiles, the most powerful woman in the world, with James Blair, the chief of congressional affairs, with Marco Rubio, my immediate boss, the acting national security advisor, secretary of state. And we're all standing there on our phones trying to repost the president's truth. And nobody knows until they see it. I mean, this is how much they don't get him. The man they said would destroy the economy and get us into World War III. He's just the ultimate puppet master of geopolitics for Americans, for our prosperity, for our security. And the fact they don't get it. One last thing. If you don't appreciate the last 4 years of his first administration, you're an idiot. How many wars did he get us involved in? None. But what did he do? He kills Soleimani as he's sitting in the passenger seat of his armored SUV on the way to his meeting with the Iraqi prime minister, the puppet of Tehran. He sees 300 Russian mercenaries destabilizing the Middle East, and he tells that lapdog Mattis, the guy who said he's the big warrior, says, hey, Jim, kill them now. 300 Russian soldiers turned into red mist by our tier 1 operators in a 4-hour battle. No president since 1917 has done that. Or when he sees chemical weapons about to be deployed by Assad, he doesn't talk about red lines like Obama did. He says, turn the air base into a sheet of glass. And then he whispers over Xi Jinping's shoulder at the Mar-a-Lago state banquet as they're eating the best chocolate cake in the world, hey, Xi, I just flattened Assad's chemical weapons base. This is what I call surgical strength. The decisive use of overwhelming force when justified in terms of national security, and then our guys go back to their bases. If you haven't been watching for the first 4 years, you don't get what happened on Saturday, and you never, ever will. Sorry.
So I think that what has happened, though, is that he has proved to MAGA and to the people that didn't get it that there is a new way. The alternative to me was false. I mean, the choices. It was, well, you either bomb them and get into a forever war, or you let them have a nuke. And I made the case that that's not accurate. There is a middle way, which is what Trump's proposing, which is take out their assets and not agree, not have a military follow-on regime change, whatever. And I guess my point to you is that beyond your hat, the NSC hat, think about, put your America First MAGA hat back on for a moment. And the question to me is, has he now silenced that wing of MAGA to say, guys, he just showed you it can be done. You don't have to choose between one extreme or the other. Forever wars or no intervention. You can be strategic and precise.
I ideally hope so, because this part of MAGA, which as far as I'm concerned isn't MAGA, needs to be excised from conservative politics, because they're not just isolationists. There's a lot of them there who are like neo-Buchananites, and they use isolationism as an excuse to veil anti-Israeli or at times anti-Semitic views. And we can't have any truck with that. I'm worried that some of them will continue to do that, even though Tucker's apologized. Why? Because they're in it for the clicks. I mean, they are in it for the clicks. They're not MAGA. They're just exploitative grifters. But can I tell you a personal story? So we had this storm here in Virginia at the weekend, and we lost power at a Gorka HQ, and it was 2 days without AC. Can somebody please give a Nobel Peace Prize to whoever invented AC? Anyway, so I'm standing outside.
How did you not have? You don't have a generator at Gorka HQ? I got to think so.
I've been trying to convince my real boss, Katie, to get one, but she runs the finances, so I'm still working on that.
All right.
So we're waiting for the power company to come, and 2 days later they finally arrive, and it's eventually you're waiting for the bus for 3 hours, and then 4 of them come. We had 4 bucket trucks, 3 pickup trucks, a drill truck. I mean, everybody arrived at once. And I'm waiting while these hard men, with the insulated gloves, the boots, are climbing up with these live wires, and we start chatting, and they find out what I do for a living. These guys, working class Americans, they get President Trump. This was before Saturday. This was just before I went into the sit room on Saturday, and they said, "Yeah, we hope he drops the big one on them," right? I mean, these are the people who want American force used when necessary without interminable forever wars. I think the president has sent the message, but at the end of the day, it's not up to him, because the clickbait prostitutes who are fake MAGA will continue to do what they do. But the good news is they will be irrelevant, because the real MAGA, like those linemen, like those power workers, the 77 million who get it, they understand peace through strength. And it's not walk softly and carry a big stick now. It's walk softly and deploy that squadron of B-2s whenever you want.
I think that's the first time I've ever heard the phrase clickbait prostitute. I'm going to have to write that one down.
I was going to use a slightly stronger one, but for the ladies out there. Yeah, I dialed it back.
So I want to switch from MAGA to the other side, because there's a tweet last night that came out from a guy named Jamie Metzel. I want to read it to you and to the audience. It said, "I served on the National Security Council under President Clinton. I was Joe Biden's deputy staff director of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. I voted for Kamala Harris and been a vocal critic of many dangerous and undemocratic actions taken by President Trump. But I'm not a blind tribalist, and I'm perfectly comfortable with praising President Trump for bold and courageous actions in support of America's core national interests, as he took last night. Iran has been at war with the United States for 46 years. Its regime has murdered thousands of American citizens. Its slogan, 'Death to America,' was not window dressing, but core ideology. It was racing towards a nuclear weapon with every intention of using it to threaten America or our allies in the Middle East region as a whole. No actions like this come without risk. I imagine the story will get more complicated over time, but that's what these kind of decisions are complicated. Although I believe electing Kamala Harris would have been better for our democracy, society, and economy, as well as for helping the most vulnerable people in the United States around the world, I also believe Vice President Harris would not have had the courage or fortitude to take such an essential step as the president took last night." Wow.
You were doing, what's his name, Joe? You were doing so well, Joe, except when you said, Kamala
Jamie.
would have been better.
His name's Jamie.
Jamie would have been, Kamala would have been better. Let me respond to that. He's wrong.
Whoa,
what the president?
On which part? Because I think he's right that she would have never dropped that bomb.
No. Before that, when he said, it's complicated. It's not complicated. You're a student of war. Clausewitz, who I have some, issues with, Clausewitz was very right on this. War is simple. It's hard to do, but it's really simple. Why? Because it boils down to one thing, and we have been given the master class in the last 3 days. What is war about? Why does Clausewitz, the man who shaped Western thought on war, why does he always use analogies about card players and wrestlers? Because it's about one side, one man, one nation imposing its will on the other nation. That's not complicated. It's very simple. I influence you to behave in a different way, either because I threaten you and you're scared of me, or because I crush you into the dust. President Trump just did that. He broke the will, as Jamie said, of a regime that has been at war with us for 46 years. It wasn't complicated. Why? Because he is a decisive man. Let's be honest, a little bit peek behind the curtain, let's open the kimono. Sean, I don't know, maybe you've had some great patrons in the Navy. Have you ever met a man in your life, I don't know how old you are, I think we're about the same age. Have you ever met a man in your life who is as decisive as President Trump? Because I haven't.
Yeah, I think that's the point of what Jamie tweeted, though, right? He wrote, I believe Vice President Harris would not have had the courage or fortitude. And I get his lead up. He doesn't want to get eviscerated by his own team. But at the end of the day, that's the key thing. Kamala Harris can't decide between running for governor or president again, either of which I think is a disaster. How do you then, if you can't make that political decision, how do you make a decision about what to do? Because I guarantee you the way the Democrats have acted between Biden and Obama, they just would have sent them more cash.
Well, let's listen to themselves. Let's listen to Obama and Biden and their autobiographies. Bin Laden was the most important enemy of the United States for almost a generation. And when we finally identified where he was hiding out in Abbottabad in Pakistan, what did the then commander-in-chief do? In the sit room, what did he do? Obama took a vote of his cabinet. He said, should we kill the man responsible for... He asked the opinion of people who weren't elected. He's the only one who's elected. The buck stops with him. And he took a vote. Oh, and by the way, who's the only person in the room who said, no, don't kill Osama bin Laden? Oh, yes, the future president, Joe Biden. This is who the left has become. They're crippled by their own hatred of America. And that's why President Trump is... Look, the U.S. Army, I don't know the other services, I think they're in a similar situation. Thanks to Pete Hegseth and the president, the U.S. Army filled its recruitment goals for the year by May.
Yeah, the Navy, by the way, Secretary Phelan just announced the Navy's hit its goal. So just don't get too excited for the Army yet.
I mean, what does that tell you, Sean? What does that tell you?
I know, there's an excitement.
Yeah.
Seb, the last thing I want to ask you, and our time is tight. Can we trust Iran, and do we, from your perspective, from what your wheelhouse, counterterrorism, do we have to be vigilant and worried about any potential repercussions?
We never trust dictatorships, right? We didn't trust the Soviet Union. We never trusted Cuba. We don't trust Venezuela, and we don't trust Iran. No. As President Reagan said, you have to verify it. You can trust the initial statement, but then you verify it. But at the end of the day, let's be clear. I can't go into the details of the conversation, but the operation, right? Midnight Hammer. It's just like what President Trump did in Syria with the chemical weapons. I tried to make this clear to observers. What he did with the Assad regime and those 52 cruise missiles wasn't just about chemical weapons being used against civilians in Syria. It was a message to Putin, to Little Kim, to Xi Jinping, to all regimes. What Operation Midnight Hammer isn't just about making sure President Trump kept his promise to us, Iran will never acquire nuclear weapons. It is a message to every dictatorship who threatens our interests. We can fly into your airspace unnoticed. We can drop 12 33,000-pound bombs and leave unnoticed. Think of one metric. Not one shot was fired and not one Iranian interceptor was launched against our B-2 bombers that had just flown 17 hours into Iranian airspace. This is a message to all dictatorships who we do not trust, but if they try to test us, guess what? We have a lot more of those bombs and a lot more of those B-2s and those brave pilots. Not for forever wars, but so that we can reach out and touch you.
Dr. Sebastian Gorka, Senior Director for Counterterrorism at the White House. As always, you never disappoint. Thanks for joining us today.
God bless. Thank you, Sean.
You bet. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.